that we are recording today's program. Our recording is just of our speakers though, so we won't be recording any girls' faces. All that being said, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Amy Artzer and I am our Community Partnerships Manager here at Girl Scouts of Colorado. I am the lucky person who gets to work on really cool programs like this and bring together our awesome partners like our partner Lockheed Martin this afternoon. Thank you all so much for taking the time to participate. I hope you have as great a time as I think you will. We did a program similar to this, but for some younger Girl Scouts yesterday, and I know I learned a lot. And just by reading the questions that you all submitted in advance, I know I'm going to learn even more today. So I'm really looking forward to handing things off to our amazing women from Lockheed Martin. But before I do that, let's review just a few housekeeping items. You are welcome to keep your video on if you'd like to, but it's certainly not required. Whatever you're the most comfortable with is okay with us. We will keep all of you Girl Scouts on mute for the duration of the program, but our chat box is available if you have any questions or concerns. Right now, the chat box is closed so that you can only message me if you have any technical questions or things like that. We will open it up to questions later on, and we'll open up the chat box so that you can all see. So if you have questions, I ask that you hold on to them until we're ready to take questions, and then we'll open up the chat box, but it is available so you can message me if you need to. And we do have some poll questions throughout the program, so please make sure you're ready to kind of click away. And I think we should kick things off really with the Girl Scout Promise and Law. So let me share my screen here. And please, if you will, follow along from home. On my honor, I will try to serve God and my country, to help people at all times, and to live by the Girl Scout law. I will do my best to be honest and fair, friendly and helpful, considerate and caring, courageous and strong, and responsible for what I say and do, and to respect myself and others, respect authority, use resources wisely, make the world a better place, and be a sister to every Girl Scout. All right, well done, everybody. I am now going to turn things over to Lauren from Lockheed Martin, and she can take it away from here.
All right, perfect. Do you have my slides up? Perfect. So hi, everybody. As Amy mentioned, my name's Lauren. I work at Lockheed Martin, and I'm so excited to be here today with my coworkers, fellow space experts, and we're really excited to talk about Lockheed Martin space engineering, things we do every day, and answer all your questions. And today we'll specifically be talking about Lockheed Martin and our partnership with NASA and our upcoming journeys to Mars. Really exciting stuff happening at Lockheed and in space. So we're really excited to talk about it today. We want to go to the next slide. Yep, so what is Lockheed Martin? All of the experts today work for Lockheed Martin. It's an aerospace and defense company, and we work with companies like the U.S. Department of Defense, the U.S. Department of Energy, and NASA to do really cool things. We all work for space specifically, but Lockheed Martin also does stuff with missiles and aircrafts and other things, lots of cool things happening at Lockheed. But we do space is what we like to say. So what does that mean exactly? Basically means we do really cool things and build really cool technologies to send to space and explore space. So if any of you have used your GPS or seen your parents use the GPS on their phone, Lockheed Martin actually builds those satellites that bring that information to your phone. Or if you've ever checked the weather on the weather app or watched the weather on the news, the information they get for the weather comes from our satellites as well. If any of you are interested in space travel or becoming an astronaut, Lockheed Martin has an integral role in Orion, which we'll actually talk about a little later, which is planning on bringing the first people back to the moon since Apollo, and eventually, hopefully, bringing people to Mars. So that just scratches the surface of everything we do at Lockheed Martin. We have so many cool things. We're exploring asteroids and planets and stars and doing really, really cool things. And yeah, it's really exciting. So if you have any questions, please ask us at the end. There's a lot of cool things. And if you continue clicking, Amy, the other plug we have, so all the girls here today are also from WIN, or the Women Impact Network at Lockheed, which, like the Girl Scouts, is a community to bring women at Lockheed together and work on strengthening relationships and helping each other and engaging in professional development and helping the community. So it's a great organization of women supporting women and our allies. So we're all part of that, and yeah, we're all excited today. Next slide. So first, I want all the panelists to introduce themselves. So you've already heard a lot from me, but I'll go ahead and start. So my name is Laura McCulley, as you've heard probably 3 times now. My job title is Spacecraft Design Engineer. Pretty fancy title, but what it means is I get to design spacecraft. Basically, I work on satellites, including GPS and a couple other satellites. I get to design them on a computer, basically from scratch with our customer requirements. And then later down the line, I actually get to go and build the satellites that I've designed on the computer. So pretty cool job. I get to touch a lot of space hardware and be really creative in designing where things can go. And one of my favorite memories, one of my favorite things I've done with space, in 2019, I got to see something I built launch into space and successfully get on orbit. So that was pretty cool and exciting for me, actually seeing my project make it to space. So that's my favorite thing I've done so far.
Hi, my name is Kari Van Zyl, and I'm a radio frequency or RF engineer at Lockheed Martin. So my job is more simulating, designing, and then building and testing RF hardware, which is what satellites use to communicate between space and Earth. And so my favorite experience from space was getting to go tour the and see a satellite, the JC-17, in the lab.
Hi, my name is Kaitlyn Britt, and I'm a human factors engineer. So my job is basically working with the end user and making sure that when our system is finished, it's something that they can operate and maintain safely and efficiently. So I don't know, I think it's pretty cool. My favorite memory is at one point when I was in college, I got to work with Bob Hickok, who was one of the faculty members at the college I went to, and he had a background in both art and engineering, and so I thought, I don't know, it was just a really cool experience to have.
All right, hi, I'm Shelby Hopkins. I'm a systems engineer, which is basically like big picture aerospace engineering. I work on the astronaut life support system for Lockheed's lunar lander. And so that basically involves providing astronauts clean air to breathe, keeping them a comfortable temperature, and dealing with their waste, so like the toilet. Basically everything that's involved with keeping the astronauts alive while they're in space. One of my favorite memories, so when I was in grad school, I worked on biological experiments for the International Space Station. And so I actually got to see one of my experiments launch to space in person, which was really cool, on a Falcon 9. And then I got to see an astronaut using the hardware up on the space station.
Hi, everyone. Nice to see you. My name is Danielle Leonard. I am a financial analyst. So what I do is I help all of our engineers with their projects and make sure they stay on budget and on schedule. One of my favorite memories at Lockheed Martin is traveling to Cape Canaveral last year, which is in Florida. And I got to tour the FBM, the Fleet Ballistic Missile, and the Orion facilities. And it was super cool because I got to crawl inside of a missile that they were building.
And just before we quickly move forward, two questions. Lauren, can you remind us what is the name of your project? That was a question that came in that I want to make sure we get answered before we move forward. We talked about
the name of my project.
Yes.
So the one that I got to see launch, I used to work on Orion, so I actually got to see AA2 launch. And then more recently, I got to see GPS satellites launch. So I work on GPS and a couple other satellites. So
great.
So
thank you for answering that. And then if all of you could let us know if any of you were Girl Scouts growing up.
I was a Girl Scout, so really cool experience. And for those of y'all who are planning to stay in Girl Scouts, definitely stay for a long time because really cool experiences.
I was not a Girl Scout, unfortunately. I always wanted to, but I moved a lot when I was a kid. But I like to pretend that I was a Girl Scout. I helped my coworker sell her daughter's cookies at work, and I always make sure I keep a box of Thin Mints in my freezer.
Awesome. Okay. We'll get to the rest of the questions later. I just wanted to make sure that we hit upon those two things before moving forward.
Okay, so we would like to dive into the Ingenuity, which is a Mars helicopter. So this Mars helicopter is designed to test. It's going to be the first powered flight onto Mars. And so this little helicopter, you can see the picture of it in the bottom right corner of your screen. It's going to take a ride. It's hitching a ride. It's on its way to Mars as we speak. And it's hitching a ride on the belly of a rover called the Perseverance. And what's really cool is Lockheed Martin got to help with building they're building the deployment system and the heat shield. So we got to launch this off earlier in July out of Cape Canaveral, Florida. And then it will be landing next year in February at the Jezero crater on Mars. And so what it will do is just deploy off of that belly of the Perseverance rover, and then it'll just fly around Mars, and it'll be the first flight ever on Mars. And then the next slide, please. We'll get to see another photo of it. Okay, so this picture here, this is actually the belly of the rover, of the Perseverance rover. And so you could see at the very bottom, you can see the little tiny helicopter. It's kind of strapped in under there. So it's just hanging on, and it'll just, once it lands on Mars, it'll let go off of that belly so it can fly. Okay, and then I think we can go to our next slide.
Oh, Danielle, could you just clarify that date again for us? There was a question that came in.
Sure. So the date we launched this rover from Florida, it was July 30th. So this past summer, and then it lands February 18th next year. So just actually exactly 3 months away.
Wow, yeah, that is true. Great, thank you. Okay, should I go this slide?
Yes. All right, so now we're going to talk about human space travel to Mars, which is one of my favorite topics. So all of our robotic missions pave the way for us to send humans to Mars. So they're checking everything out for us before we as people go. And so something that's exciting about working at Lockheed Martin is we design and build a spacecraft called Orion. So you can see it in this picture here. And this is a spacecraft that we build for NASA. So this is a multi-purpose crew vehicle, and that basically just means that we can kind of adapt the vehicle and use it in different ways. So we can send astronauts to the moon, we can send astronauts to Mars. It can go a lot of different places in our solar system. And this is one of the first spacecrafts designed for deep space since Apollo. And when we say deep space, we just mean that beyond Earth's orbit. So the moon, Mars, Jupiter, out of the solar system, that's all deep space. All right, so we are going to kick off our manned journey to Mars with what we're calling the Artemis missions. And so Artemis and Apollo are actually Greek mythological characters. And so Apollo's twin sister is named Artemis. And so NASA has named this mission Artemis because we were planning to go back to the moon before we go to Mars. So when we go back to the moon, we're going to have the first woman and the next man step on the surface of the moon. And we're aiming to do that in 2024, and that's pretty exciting. So that's the program I work on, is going back to the moon. But yeah, going to Mars is really hard, especially when you need to bring along everything that is involved with keeping people alive: food, water, and oxygen. And it really adds up for a long mission. Going to Mars could be a 2.5-year mission. And so we have to do a lot of work to develop really important technology to get us there, and support the astronauts on the way. So the next slide will go into some of that.
Yep. So as you mentioned, we have had to develop and create a lot of new technologies in support of Orion in our next missions to the moon and hopefully eventually to Mars, because we're trying to do something that has never been done before, and that is get humans to Mars. So we need to build new technologies, and one of those things that NASA has developed is using nuclear propulsion in space. So generally, propulsion systems on spacecrafts burn a solid or liquid propellant or fuel at a very high temperature and expel the byproducts, which is kind of like water and gas, through a nozzle to create thrust so the spacecraft can move. Nuclear propulsion works similarly. It pumps a liquid propellant, most likely hydrogen, through a reactor core, which splits uranium atoms, basically creates a ton of energy and releases a ton of heat, converting the propellant into a gas and sending it through a nozzle to create thrust. But using nuclear propulsion versus the traditional solid or liquid propellants is a lot more efficient and a lot more powerful than the traditional methods of propulsion. One of the reasons that is because the byproduct is mostly gas, so it can move quicker and is much lighter than the water byproducts in the traditional fuels. So it's predicted that using nuclear propulsion versus solid and liquid propellants can reduce the travel times to Mars by 25%, which is huge when you think about how long it could take to get to Mars, and especially having humans on board. We want to make the journey as quick and safe as possible for them, so they can return back to Earth safely, and be more efficient about it is always the key. So that's one of the key advancing technologies in support of our journey to Mars. Next slide.
All right, so another technology that we need to develop to explore Mars is new spacesuits. So you can see in this picture here, this is the concept for the new Martian spacesuits, which they're calling the XEMU. So the X stands for exploration, exploration, and then it's called extravehicular mobility unit. So that just means what an astronaut wears when they're outside their spacecraft. And so a spacesuit is pretty much just like a mini spacecraft that is human sized. So you need everything that you would need on your spacecraft in the harsh environment of space. So your spacesuit keeps you a comfortable temperature, it gives you oxygen, gives you a pressurized environment. All those things are really important that they work well. Otherwise, the astronaut might die. So it's really important to have a sturdy spacesuit and have it well suited for exploration. So there's a couple ways that the new spacesuits are new and improved compared to the ones we currently have. And one great example of this is the current spacesuits that the astronauts use on the International Space Station. They actually weigh about 280 pounds, which is a lot. And it doesn't really matter when you're orbiting Earth because you're in microgravity. And so nothing really weighs anything. But if you're going to go land on the moon or Mars, you will actually be at 1/6 or 1/3 of Earth's gravity. And so it does matter how heavy your spacesuit is if you're going to be walking around. So the new spacesuit weighs less than half of the current spacesuit, probably like 1/3. And so that's one improvement. It's also a lot more flexible, and the joints have been redesigned. So one problem the Apollo astronauts had when they landed on the moon is when they fell down, they kind of had a hard time getting back up. They also had a hard time, reaching down for moon rocks and things like that. So these spacesuits have more flexible hip joints and arm joints so that the astronauts can move across their body and pick things up and work with tools. And then let's see, the last thing is that they also have to, it's been improved with the pressurized environment of the suit. So when you're in a spacesuit, you're actually kind of puffed up like a balloon because the suit is pressurized. And so it can actually be kind of challenging for an astronaut to move against the pressurized sleeves and legs and hands when they're doing things. And so all the joints have been optimized for that. Lastly, the material is going to keep the astronauts warm in, for example, like a Martian winter, or keep them from overheating when it's like a Martian summer. So space can be really, really hot or really, really cold. There's not a lot of in between. So it's really important that the spacesuit material can keep the astronauts a comfortable temperature. So these suits are going to be tested out when we go to the moon. So the first woman and the next man, they're going to wear these new XEMU suits, and that will be very exciting. All right, next slide.
Hi, so the third step in working towards deep space missions is making sure that we have the power to do that. Traditionally in space, solar panels have been used to generate power, and in a lot of places that's worked really well. But on Mars, that might not be the best solution for something bigger like a manned mission. So NASA is developing a lightweight mobile system that can run regardless of its location on Mars. That's actually really important. Mars is covered in dust, and Earth is covered in dust too. But the problem is, because of the reduced gravity on Mars, whenever there's a dust storm, it settles in the air for longer than it does on Earth. The other thing is it can also be more abrasive than any of the dust or sand that is on Earth. So it can do a lot of damage to equipment. And you can also, if you think about it and you have a dust storm like that, it'll also settle on top of things. So you really have to make sure that, if you were gonna have solar panels or something like that, you'd probably have to really care about cleaning them regularly. So dust and weather in general are really big problems on Mars. So developing a fission reactor or something similar that would generate power for people, that's really cool, and that's really exciting stuff. So just so y'all know, 10 kilowatts of electrical power is enough to run several households continually for 10 years, which is crazy. So this type of fission technology that they're working on is pretty cool. And just so you know, fission technology fission and fusion are often taught together. So fusion is what the sun does, and it generates or it releases energy through fusion. Fission releases energy through splitting atoms and stuff. So fusion is combining them together, and fission is splitting them. So that's where that energy comes from. Oh, sorry, next slide.
Okay, so now we just have a few questions just to see if you guys are paying attention. So I think we have a poll set up for this, is that right, Lauren?
Yes, let me get it up here.
Okay, perfect.
Second. All right, there you go. All right, let's try to get full participation in this poll. So 63% of you have filled it out so far. So if you're not looking at your computer screen, please tune in and fill out our poll. All right, looks like almost everyone has filled it out. Oh, a few more trickling in. Come on, everybody. All right, I'm going to end this poll and share our results.
All right, and so if we go to the next slide, we'll see the answer was all of the above. So you guys did a great job. So Lockheed Martin has helped build the GPS satellites, the Mars helicopter, and Orion. All right, we can go to the next one. All right, next question is, when is Ingenuity landing on Mars?
All right. 42 people, 43. I'll give it a few more seconds for try to see if everyone can fill it out. And if you can't see the poll, there might be like on your Zoom controls, maybe there's a feature where it should have popped up so you can see it. Otherwise, I'm not quite sure why you can't see the poll. But it's okay because we're going to go over the answers too. So I'm actually going to close this one. Here we go.
All right, and if you click again, we'll see answer is February 2021, 3 months from today. So good job, most of you guys got that one too. All right. And then when are we planning on landing the first woman on the moon?
All right, great participation on this one. See the numbers going up real quick. Everyone's quick to click their answer for this question. Okay.
All right. Great job, guys. 2024. Okay. All right. Why are Orion's next missions named Artemis?
Not so fast on this one. Got to think about it for a minute. All right, come on, you last few stragglers. Show us what you think your answer is. You're not being graded today, I promise. All right, I'm going to close this one.
All right, and the correct answer was both A and C. So because it's Apollo's twin sister and Orion is modeled similarly to the Apollo missions, and because we're landing the first woman on the moon during the Artemis 3 launch. Great job, guys.
And Artemis is not the Greek god of space, but she is a god of the moon. So a little bit of a trick question in there. That's another reason that Artemis and Apollo gods of the moon. So got a little background on the Greek mythology. There you go, but not technically space.
Great. So I think now we have time to take some questions. And I think we will start with, I just want to make sure that we start with some of the questions that were submitted in registration. So let's see here. Okay, if space is a field you're looking to go into, what is the most valuable degree that you can pursue after high school?
So I can start us off on this one. So I don't think there's actually a right answer because there's so many different processes and components involved to getting us to space that there's a place for everyone. So.
Yeah, to piggyback off of what Kari said, agreed. And you can even get to space without doing a STEM degree. There's a lot of need for art and finance, as Danielle can attest to, and all of those different things in space. You know, we can't teach people about space without artists and writers and all those other people. So I think there's a lot of room for people in space with different degrees and backgrounds.
Great. So some other questions. How do each of you support other women in their careers? Please tell us a story of how you reached out and made a difference to another woman in a STEM field.
Yeah, I'll start. I think this is a great question, and I think it's so important as women that we support each other and help each other pursue our passions, and really makes it top of. It's all about women supporting women supporting each other. As you probably understand, women tend to be underrepresented in the STEM field, so it's even more critical for us to help each other and stick together. And I think specifically for me, I'm pretty fresh out of college. I just recently graduated. So I just think back to college, and I had such a strong community in college of women, and we'd help each other with our homework and ask each other questions, and just like be there for each other, offer words of support. It can be challenging at times, so just, you know, helping whenever you can and always being there and being supportive and positive is really important and can go a really long way in helping someone be successful. And I just think in the workplace, just, just reaching out and talking to people and asking them how they're doing, and just making sure they know that you're there, and if they ever need help, you're available, I think is just important. Keep your spirits up for whatever reason. So yeah, just women supporting women, really important. And you guys probably know that as Girl Scouts, you probably help each other. So already know that, and it's really important.
Lauren makes some great points. And I think all of us who work at Lockheed Martin, I think we're making steps in supporting women just by being a part of this Women's Impact Network, where we get to come together and kind of just like voice our opinions and empower each other. I think in day-to-day life, whether you're in class in school, working on a group project, or in the office for us working on our projects, or in meetings, because like what Lauren said, women can be underrepresented. So what is really helpful is making sure your teammates, your female teammates, their voices are heard. So when you're in that group project and you feel like, maybe one of your female teammates isn't speaking up, always stick up for her and say, hey, Kari, what's your idea? What's your thought on how we're going to do this project? And that little action goes a long way.
Great, I love all of that. Thank you. Some of the other questions, just a lot of thanks also as well for doing this. What are some of the advantages and disadvantages of being a woman in a STEM career and working for a STEM focused company?
I guess I can start off. So one of the advantages, I think, both my degrees are in aerospace engineering as well. So I also felt this in college, with just being like a minority as a woman. You do get noticed more, which I think is often a good thing. I've been, chosen to, speak at different events or attend things because, either the company or the college is trying to have a diverse group of people represent them. And so there's just less options. So that's always a bonus. And, people notice when you show up to things and when you are in meetings and when you talk. So I find that a benefit, as well as you can form, stronger friendships with other women, just because you're kind of going through the same thing. There's not too many downsides of being a woman in the space industry, but I have found sometimes there's a lot of guy-oriented casual talk around the office, and sometimes I don't necessarily have anything to contribute to that, but I can also steer the conversation towards something that I'm interested in, whether it's skiing or watching TV or something else. So that's my 2 cents. Everyone's experience is a little different based on the group they're in and where they're working.
I can also jump in. So I think I don't see as many disadvantages. I mean, I think being a woman, you bring diversity to any group that you're going to be in engineering areas. And that perspective is really important. An example of that is at the beginning of space travel as we know it. It was largely dominated by men. And so when they developed toilets initially for astronauts, they were designed for men. So when the first female astronaut came through, she had to be like, that's not going to work for me. And there was a lot. So as a woman, there's a lot of space for innovation and for diversity of perspective, and stuff like that is really important. So I don't know, you can call that that's probably both a disadvantage and an advantage, because not being able to use the bathroom is pretty critical. But room for innovation everywhere. So
that's awesome. Great. Okay, I want to move through these questions because there weren't a ton that were submitted in advance, and we'll have some great time to open up the chat box, which I'm excited about. Okay, here's a great question. What is your advice for girls who maybe love science and technology, but don't really perform very well in these subjects at school? Like maybe they're not great test takers, but they are really interested in science and technology. What's your best advice for them?
I'll start this one off. So I think it's really important to continue to pursue something that you're interested in and that's going to make you excited to show up for it. So with that, it means you might have to work a little bit harder, but there's a lot of resources for you to take advantage of. And that's especially something, you know, as you get to college, you're going to have office hours for your professor where that's a chance for them to better explain the homework or assignments to you and to get to know you personally and know that you're putting in a lot of hard work. And I just think there's a lot of benefit to that. But at the end of the day, you should continue to stick with something that is going to get you excited. So.
Yeah, I agree completely. And I have a little personal anecdote to go with this. So I love math and science in high school as well and pursued engineering, obviously. My first test in college, I got a 50% on it. So I was like a little, oh gosh, I don't know if this is the right choice for me. You know, I didn't succeed right away, but I got like a couple C's freshman year. And then I really, as Kari mentioned, I started reaching out to my professors and taking advantage of the resources the university had to offer. And I ended up graduating with honors. So there's definitely a lot of things you can take advantage of and a lot of resources. And my honest advice, it's like super cheesy, but if you work hard, you can really do anything you set your mind to. Said started at 50% and ended up graduating with honors. So and there were many times where it was really hard and I thought about quitting or wasn't doing well on tests, but I stuck with it and I'm so glad I did because I do a lot of cool things now. So definitely worth it. If it's something you're passionate about and something you love, you'll figure out a way to do it and do well at it, I believe. So stick with it.
Great.
I would also just throw in there in the working world, it's also really important to be able to explain things. And sometimes the smartest people, the geniuses, sometimes it just comes so easily to them that they have a hard time actually explaining what, you know, the topic that they're an expert in to everyone else. And so if you're going through that experience where you're really having to get help to learn something, it's actually really valuable because then you're able to have the tools to explain that to other people. And I found them that's really important. Otherwise, you can't share all your knowledge and expertise with anyone else.
Great. And actually, here's a question that's related to this conversation is, do you mind, can you guys, can you all women tell us where you went to college and what your degree is in, if you're comfortable with that?
Yep, so I went to University of Notre Dame in South Bend, Indiana, and I graduated 2019 with my Bachelor of Science in Mechanical Engineering, and then I'm currently pursuing a Master's of Engineering in Systems Engineering from Penn State University.
And so I went to CU Boulder. And in 2019, I finished my bachelor's and my master's degree in electrical engineering.
I can go next. I went to Georgia Tech and I graduated in 2015 with a degree in aerospace engineering. And then I went to CU Boulder to get my master's degree, also in aerospace engineering.
So I went to Virginia Tech and I graduated in 2019. I have bachelor's degrees in creative writing, professional and technical writing, and industrial and systems engineering with a concentration in human factors engineering. So it was a wild ride.
And I did something a little different from engineering, but very important to Lockheed Martin engineering projects. I pursued a business degree with a concentration in international business. So how we do business with different countries. And I am currently pursuing my master's of business. So my undergrad was at St. Mary's College in California. And my master's degree is with Pepperdine University in Malibu, California.
Great. So great to learn a little bit more about all of you. Very cool. Okay, so I'm gonna turn to the chat box now. Our chat box is still closed and I will open it up. I promise you that. But I want to get through some of the questions that came in while we were all chatting. So Dory asked in the photo in one of the slides, why is there foil on the tires? And maybe I should go back to that slide so that I can show everybody. I think it was, let me pull that up. Hold on. This slide, can everyone see this? Great. So why are there foil, or looks to us like foil on the tires? If someone can explain that to us.
Yep, so I believe those are MLI blankets. I did not work on Ingenuity, but we use blankets a lot in space that look like that. So that's why I'm guessing that we use that on our satellites, and it's used for thermal protection. So space is a very, as we talked about earlier, very harsh environment thermally, very extreme temperatures. So a lot of times we'll use these blankets, which look like foil, to protect the parts from thermal wear and tear.
Great, thank you. Okay, turning back to our chat box. Is a lot of this equipment tested underwater before it's brought elsewhere? I feel like that's something we see a lot in movies and things where they're trying to simulate space underwater.
So most of the time, spacecraft is not usually tested underwater. I would say the main things that is usually when the astronaut needs to practice doing something that they're going to need to do in space. So water is one of the best ways we can simulate microgravity. And so an astronaut will get in their spacesuit and they'll weigh them down a certain amount where they're perfectly floating under the water. There's a huge pool at Johnson Space Center in Texas. It's called the Neutral Buoyancy Lab. And they have like a mock International Space Station underwater. And so when the astronauts practice their EVAs, if they're going to fix something outside the spacecraft, they'll practice that underwater so they can get a feel of moving around and moving across like the outside of the spacecraft, in a microgravity-ish environment. And so you have to practice things like, if you let go of your tool, it's not going to drop to the ground, it's going to float and things like that. The way we test satellites a lot of the time is we'll put a satellite in like a thermal chamber and test it at different temperatures, really cold, really hot. We might put it in a vacuum chamber. We'll do an acoustic test. We'll shake the spacecraft or its pieces really hard to simulate a rocket launch. So we'll shake it at specific frequencies. I'm trying to think of any other tests, if you guys know, throw them out there. But we do a lot of things to simulate what the spacecraft might go through on its way to space. So the rocket launch, the temperature, the environment it's going to be in, so that we can make sure it works when we get up there.
Great.
Yeah, and
great. Go ahead.
I was just going to add this is something too, we don't wait until the end to do all this testing. So when I support hardware, it's a very small subsystem of the satellite. And so I'll actually test my portion of the hardware as it goes through the process to make sure that there are no surprises later on. And so if we run into issues at subsystem level, we can work with it, we can fix it to make sure we don't have failures before or by the time it gets to the actual spacecraft.
Cool. How is Lockheed Martin and the space industry being impacted by COVID-19?
Well, any of the ladies can chime in, but at least from my standpoint, we are relatively unaffected. Space exploration is still going on. Our customers still need defense systems. So we're still up and running. Our work environment looks a little different. We're all working from home if possible, or if not, our engineers are going into the office, but in a very safe way with masks and social distancing in the office or the labs.
Yeah, and just one thing that, I haven't luckily run into this in my personal experience, but I think we've had some people have to deal with if one of our vendors or one of our suppliers is affected, they might not be able to get us the parts that we need. And so having to have a backup plan of, okay, what replacement parts can we use if we run into this situation is stuff we do have to think about now.
Another thing we've had to think about on the human factors end is human in the loop testing. COVID has made that pretty difficult. So depending on who your customer is, whether it's military or NASA, there are pretty strict regulations in place for human in the loop testing. So you really have to work around those very specifically to make sure that you're not putting anybody from Lockheed at risk, you're not putting your astronauts at risk, you're not putting your military personnel at risk. And yeah, it's different. It hasn't stopped. It's just different and cleaner, much cleaner, very clean.
Wow, that's a lot to think about. Okay, some great questions coming in. Let me just make sure. So a bunch of girls mentioned that they are interested in maybe becoming an astronaut one day. That's a great big goal. I love it. Do any of you have any advice for them? If that's like, that's what I want to be when I grow up.
I guess I can talk. So it's one of my goals as well. So I would just say the baseline requirements currently to apply to be an astronaut. You need a college degree in science, technology, engineering, math, like just your general STEM degree. And then a new requirement is a master's degree. And I think 3 to 5 years of work experience maybe is the other requirement, and grad school counts for that. So that's, you have to be a US citizen. So that's just the basic requirement. They do like to see people who are, physically fit. They can work in a space environment. They like to see people who maybe have research experience or PhDs, people who have worked in extreme environments, whether that's Antarctica or maybe they go backpacking in the wilderness. And it's really important to be able to work well with a team and be the type of person that someone would like to spend, a year in space with is important as well. And, being able to, fix things and work with tools is another important thing to think about. So I would caveat all of that with, astronauts, it's going to start looking a little bit different. We have commercial astronauts now, and so far we've only had NASA astronauts go to space, but pretty soon SpaceX and other companies will be able to pick their own astronauts. And we don't really know what that selection process is going to look like. You might be able to pay to be an astronaut. And so it's really going to depend on what is the mission, what needs to be done in space. So that was a long run-on sentence, but the overall point I want to convey is kind of just do what you're passionate about and try to get experience. Trying things in environments maybe you're a little uncomfortable, maybe going on a backpacking trip or something like that, and really focus on school and try to get some research experience. And just stay excited about space and take up any opportunities that come your way, and just see where it falls out.
That's great. Those are a lot of things that I didn't think about before. So that's some great advice for girls. Jessica asked a wonderful question. Did any of you have mentors in your career or otherwise, and what was their impact on you? So who did you look to as you, your career developed?
Yeah, so I actually, one thing that's pretty cool, and I don't know if it's specific to my group or just Lockheed in general, but when they bring in the younger engineers, they pair us off with someone who has more experience right off the bat. And so it gives you a chance to really learn from that person how to better perform in your job, and just getting a better technical understanding and learning new skills. And so for me, my mentor has helped me a lot. He's been very patient, listens to all my questions, makes sure I understand what's going on, and can, at this point, be relatively self-sufficient. So.
Yeah, I can go ahead and answer. I've probably had like many mentors throughout my life. A couple that stand out to me in high school, I had a teacher who was really important to me, and he really challenged me to take difficult classes in high school and really pushed me to challenge myself. And I don't think I would have been able to go to the school I did or study what I did without him really helping me push myself and challenge myself. So I think the lesson in that is challenge yourself and don't be afraid to challenge yourself. I think I accomplished a lot because of him, and he was a big mentor to me. He was also my basketball coach. So he was able to help me in all facets of my life, which I really appreciate, and looking back, really appreciate. And then in college, I had a similar, my advisor in college also pushed me and challenged me, and encouraged me to use my resources and reach out to professors. He really turned around my college experience from the 50% to graduating with honors. So I appreciate that. And now in the workforce, my old manager was actually also my soccer coach growing up. So sports have played a role in my life, but she used to coach me, and I reached out to her in college and asked just to have a conversation with her about Lockheed, and like ask about what she does at work and if she had any advice. And she ended up being a hiring manager. So it worked out really well for me. She was able to get me a job, and she's really given me a lot of opportunities at work to do some really cool things and opportunities I wouldn't otherwise have. And she's like really supported me and elevated me in my career so far, even though it's only been a couple years. So yeah, I really appreciate all of those people.
Great. I'm going to go ahead. So our chat box is open now. I will go through though and continue to answer questions. Please, so you can enter your questions for all our amazing women into the chat box. Like I said, I'll go through and read them. Please only enter your question once, and we'll do our best to get through all of them. And please keep your feedback in the chat box related to today's webinar. And we'll try not to get off topic too much. And then of course, if you have, comments or feedback for specific women, you can please feel free to enter that in as well. Okay, so let me go back through and make sure that we're answering it. So what prompted you, each of you, to pursue your degree and your, the field of science and engineering, or for Danielle, for you, the business in particular? Like what made you choose that?
I could start just because I'm kind of the one off with a business degree. And I chose business because there's so many things you can do with it. You can work in this great aerospace and defense industry, work at Lockheed Martin, but you could do a lot more. You could support engineers in other industries as well. You could really take it anywhere. Every company, every industry needs someone in business, operations, and finance. So kind of one of those things that you could take anywhere with you.
Yeah, so I have the classic engineering story. I just really liked math and science in high school, and I want to do something with math and science. I was told a lot in high school, if you're thinking about engineering, go into college as an engineering major, because it's much easier to change out of engineering than into engineering, just because our course load requirements are pretty strict. So I just went for it. I was like, I'll see how it goes, and just kind of stuck with it. There was kind of one moment in my college career that I look back on where I was like, wow, I really love engineering. And it was actually my CAD class, which is what I do a lot of in my job now. We designed and built little toys from scratch. And I was like, wow, engineering's so cool. You actually get to like build things and see your products and like have a tangible result, which I really love. And it's really challenging, and I love solving the problems. So it's kind of why I stuck with engineering. I love it. So I'm glad I did.
Okay, so some other great questions that came in. What has been the highlight of your career so far?
Personally, I don't think I've had the highlight just yet. I don't know. I'm pretty young. I hope I get my highlight later in my career when I'm older. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to have peaked yet. Everything is really cool though. It's been really cool to learn all the stuff that I've learned. It's been really cool to see all the engineering things that I've seen, like the Orion craft when I was going through human in the loop testing, and working with soldiers, working with VR, working with augmented reality. There are just so many cool things, and I don't know, I guess working with people is the highlight so far, but I don't know. I hope that I haven't peaked yet. I hope I peak when I'm older.
You know, Kaitlyn, I think that that's like such an excellent point, because I think when all of you were telling us about your education and your background, you haven't been in your fields all that long, and I think to say that like you're still working towards that like big highlight moment is really great and exciting. Like I would totally, I'm not that much older, but I would totally put myself in that same bucket of like I'm still working towards like that big moment. So I feel like that's like such an excellent answer, and I'm really glad that we got to highlight that. Another question that came in is, what made you choose Lockheed Martin as your place of employment?
For me, I really wanted to work on human spaceflight specifically, and there's really only so many options for that. Yeah, NASA, Lockheed Martin, Boeing, SpaceX, Blue Origin, maybe. And then I also really wanted to live in Colorado. So those two things really aligned for Lockheed Martin here in Denver. So that made it easy for me. So I just kind of targeted my job search right here, Lockheed Martin in Denver.
I just really wanted to work for a company that I would be proud of, and proud of all of its missions. And, you know, I really am, you know, I feel super happy to say I get to work at Lockheed Martin, and I get to work on all these really important missions, both commercial and space exploration and in defense.
All right, great. And I just want to remind everyone, let's keep the focus on the women who are presenting. We have some great questions still rolling in. Okay. You have to have military experience to be an astronaut. I mean, I think we went over that a little bit, but that's a great specific question.
Yeah, so you don't specifically. You can kind of go two different routes. The like civilian route, which is kind of all of the requirements that I listed out before, and you can also go the military route if you're like a fighter pilot or a test pilot in the military. You know, that's another experience that makes for a really good astronaut. So typically, if you do have military experience, you don't need the master's degree or a PhD. So there's two different options, but you definitely do not have to have military experience. That was a requirement back in the early days, like Gemini, when we were first going to space. But now we do a lot more in space, a lot of research and things like that on the International Space Station. So it is not a requirement.
Great. And this is a great question. What are some science fields within the space industry where there's a lack of people in that field or lack of knowledge, or they need more people in that field specifically?
So I think that's a really good question because it's directed towards innovation and where we're heading, where we're going. I don't know that that necessarily means that there's a lack of people, but it definitely means that there's a lack of knowledge because it's something that we haven't necessarily explored before. Some really big emerging technologies are machine learning, which is super cool if you've never looked into it. Another one is advanced manufacturing techniques so that we can more efficiently produce things that, I don't know, would have taken longer before. Other areas, there's a lot of emphasis right now on virtual reality and augmented reality. There's not so much of a knowledge gap there anymore, I would say, but it's definitely one of those newer fields that it is pretty cool to explore. From a human factors perspective, in all of space and missile defense, there are 3 of us. So if you want to be a human factors engineer, hit me up. For the people down in Houston who are working on Orion and Artemis, there are more human factors engineers down there, but we need more people for human factors. So yeah.
Another one I would throw out there is like data management almost. So if you think about the satellites that are looking down on Earth and say they're measuring weather, or they have cameras and they're taking all these measurements, the more we advance cameras and video, and we're able to every day get better at how fast we can send information to and from space, you just really accumulate a lot of data. And I know there's a lot of future work on how do you store that data, how do you manage it, how do you get the useful data out of it. So that's another one that comes to mind.
Great. This actually came up a few times. Can some of you tell us what does your day-to-day look like? Like, what do you do when you sit down to work? Sit down to work, I would say not go to work because I feel like most people are working from home these days. But what does that look like?
Yeah, so my role as spacecraft design engineer is I'm kind of the interfacing point between all of the different subsystems of the satellite. So you have like propulsion and power and thermal, structure, mechanical design, everything you have to think about when designing a satellite. And I kind of work them all together. So my day-to-day, I have kind of like, I'll have tag up meetings with the different subsystems. I'll do like model spin. So I work a lot in computer aided design or CAD. So I have the model on my computer. And so I'll show all of the stakeholders, all the different subsystems, the customer, the model, make sure it works for everyone. And then I'll just go into the design of the satellite. So designing the parts that go in the satellite and then actually assembling them into the model, into the satellite, placing them and making sure that where I place them meets our requirements. So a lot of computer aided design, a lot of on my computer modeling and assembling, a lot of interfacing and communicating with a lot of different groups, and occasionally I'll have like fun like analysis. So to make sure something meets requirements, I might have to analyze it a little bit. But those are the 3 main things I do, and I do them almost every day. So it's a typical day for me.
Yeah, so something that I really enjoy about my job is just how I get to mix my time. And so I Like I enjoy the design and simulation part of the job, which is at my desk, but then I also really like being in the lab and physically testing my hardware and troubleshooting. And, you know, I think that's kind of where I learn the most, is where I run into an issue in the lab and then I have to go through the circuit, figure out, okay, what's causing the issue? What can we try to fix it and resolve it? So I really like that kind of split time between things I like.
Great. So this is a really cool question. And so in the world of Girl Scouts, you can pursue your bronze, silver, and gold awards. The gold award is the highest achievement in Girl Scouting. A lot of people are more familiar with the Eagle Scout, and in the world of Girl Scouts, the gold award is our equivalent. And we have a young lady who's participating today who's working on her silver award, which is the award that you pursue in middle school. And she's exploring pay gaps between men and women in different industries. Is that something, I mean, is that something as women in the space industry and in a STEM career, is that something that you've noticed or experienced?
So I guess I have one take on this. So at a big company, lots of times they have to be really standard about how they pay people. So for example, at Lockheed Martin, or say you're at NASA, which is government, you can actually look up government salaries. And at Lockheed Martin, you know, within the company, we can look up different pay bands and things like that. So I can see, you know, anyone at my level, this is the pay range that they're going to make. It doesn't tell you like, oh, does Danielle make $2,000 more than me? I won't know that. So it's kind of hard to know, you know, what other people are making. But I would say I have seen people say, this is like a broad generalization, that sometimes men are more likely to ask for a promotion because they, you know, think they can do it, and women might wait until they know they can do it. And so women want to make sure they check all the boxes maybe before they apply to this job that they want to, you know, that will take them to the next step. And sometimes men are more likely to be like, oh, well, I check half the boxes. I probably can do the rest. I'll apply, and let them decide. And that's like a really broad generalization, so I don't want to say that applies to everyone. And so in that case, you know, if men are, you know, getting those promotions more often, there will be like a pay, you know, disparity over the course of your career. That's just my 2 cents. I don't know if anyone else has other things to add.
I think Shelby makes a really good point. If there is any pay disparity, I think the biggest thing we could do as women is to advocate for ourselves and not be afraid. Maybe men might feel, you know, more bold or more brave to ask for that promotion and or that raise. And so as women, don't be afraid to, you know, work for it and fight for yourself, advocate for yourself. And, you know, you got to work hard and earn it, and, you know, show your leadership that you deserve that pay raise.
I'm so glad we recorded it, because I might have to go back and replay both your answers for myself. Another question, and these are awesome questions. We have a few more minutes together, so we can keep answering them. Do you think we will colonize the moon or Mars, and if so, when?
I can take this one. I think maybe eventually. I don't think soon, not in the next 10 years. We have a lot of work to do before we get there. And you know, it's easy to forget how much our planet Earth really provides us. You know, it is constantly giving us fresh oxygen and water, and its natural processes recycle all of that for us. You know, in your house, you just take the trash out and the garbage truck picks it up. But, you know, in space, you just slowly collect all that trash. And so, including poop. So your poop's just not gonna biodegrade on the moon. So there's a lot of things, you know, you really take for granted living on planet Earth, that we have to, you know, provide all that infrastructure on the moon or Mars. And so we definitely can do it. We've practiced a lot of this, you know, on the International Space Station, and, you know, we're sending people to the moon soon to practice more. But the infrastructure you need for, you know, 100 people is so much compared to sending 2 astronauts to the moon. So right now we're testing all the technology out, figuring out what works, what doesn't, you know, what breaks easily, what is lunar dust going to, you know, mess up or scratch, or, you know, there's so many different things. How are we getting our power? And so, you know, over time, we're going to, you know, learn those lessons, and then we're going to be able to gradually grow to maybe having, you know, a lunar base where, you know, people can either come on vacation or maybe they'll come and work, and slowly build that up. But I don't think it's going to be we go from 0 people on Mars to 200 people on Mars. It's going to take a while for that to happen.
That totally makes sense. Thank you. Okay, so I have to say, I think we've gotten through almost all the questions in the chat box. I will remind everyone that we're going to post today's recording. So if there's something that you missed or you'd like to go back and listen to something, you can find our recording on our Meet an Expert playlist on our YouTube channel. As I'm chatting away here, there's one more question that came in. As someone who plans to study meteorology and be a pilot in the Air Force, what are ways that I can contribute to space exploration, especially with the meteorology aspect? And that's from Willow and Rain.
I can answer part of this if that's okay. So meteorology and weather in general is really important. So if you want to be someone who studies atmospheric changes and weather patterns and stuff like that, all of that is incredibly important in space. When we were talking earlier about the power generator that they're going to be making on Mars that's supposed to be super efficient, that NASA is working towards right now, big problems that they have to deal with are weather. So understanding weather patterns, understanding how we have to adapt to meet those and to deal with them, whether it's making sure that our technology isn't going to be destroyed by the weather that exists on Mars or something like, there's one of, I don't know, other planets we may explore. That's really, really important. So yeah, I hope that answered most of your question, but very important.
Cool. Okay, so I think this is going to be our, well, second to last question. And that would be, if you could tell your younger self something today, what would it be and why?
I love this question. I think what I would tell myself is that I think it's the advice I gave earlier to you guys is like, you can do anything you want if you work hard. And there has been a lot of times in college, even now in my career, where I doubt myself, where I feel like I'm not good enough or inadequate. And that's all just like lies in my brain that I tell myself. And so I would just remind my younger self, like, do what you love, and don't stop pursuing what you love. And yeah, you can do anything that you want to do, and don't doubt yourself is a big thing. So definitely do that. And that goes to all of you. You all can do anything that you want to, as long as you work hard, anything's attainable.
Yeah, that was great advice, Lauren. I would say remember that the community around you, the sisters that are here in this Zoom meeting, you know, they're resources. They're a great network for you. And I think a lot of times there sometimes be just some negativity in the world. And it's really important to remember that these girls around you, they're your sisters, they're ready to empower you, and you should be ready to empower them. And so remember, no one is your competition. Just do your best and remember those girls around you. They're your sisters.
Awesome. Oh, go ahead.
One thing I would add is what I would tell my younger self, especially when I was starting out college, is that you don't have to do everything by yourself. And I know, especially, in middle school, high school, it's very much like you need to do your homework assignment, don't cheat, don't work with other people. But in college, it's a lot more like collaborative, and it just like took me a while to get used to that. And honestly, there's a lot of problems, homework problems I just couldn't figure out by myself. And working together with other people is, what we all do every day at work at Lockheed Martin. More heads together, more perspectives, gives a better solution to a problem. And so working with friends on homework like saved my butt in college. Ultimately, there's some things that I was really good at and I could help out friends, and there's other things my friends were really good at and they had to walk me through it and help me through it. So I would tell myself to work with other people a lot earlier than I did.
Yeah, I can definitely relate, Shelby. I know I, for a long time, was really uncomfortable asking for help. But at a certain point, just realizing like that's why other resources are around, are to help you succeed. And I guess just kind of going along with that, the other thing I would remind myself is take advantage of all the opportunities you're given. There's no better way to find out what you like, what you don't like, what's going to play to your strengths. There's just so many opportunities out there, and the more you take advantage of, I think the more opportunity you give yourself to grow and to become a better version of yourself.
Awesome. Well, that I think is a great question to kind of close things out on. I want to say thank you to everybody. I'm gonna ask you all my standard closing question, and that is, what is your favorite Girl Scout cookie? But as you all answer it, I'll launch our closing poll here, just so everyone can tell us a little bit about their experience today. But I really want to say thank you to everybody. All the Girl Scouts out there for joining, all of these amazing 5 women from Lockheed Martin. I learned so much, and I can't wait to go tell my family about everything I learned. So if you could all just take an opportunity to tell us what's your favorite Girl Scout cookie, and then we'll close things out.
For me, it is hands down Samoas. So can't get enough of those.
For me, it's the classic Thin Mint.
I have to agree with Shelby. It's always the Thin Mints for me. I always keep a box in my freezer.
I'm all about the tagalongs. Chocolate and peanut butter doesn't get better than that.
I like all the cookies. I just eat cookies, and I'll eat like the whole box of cookies, and it's fine. Everything is fine. That is all. All cookies are great.
Great. I love it. Well, like I said, thank you so much to everybody. Danielle, Lauren, Shelby, Kaitlyn, Kari, it was a pleasure to meet all of you. I hope the Girl Scouts at home feel the same way. Maybe someday we'll get to meet in person and do some cool science experiments all together. Who knows? Fingers crossed. And thank you as well to Lockheed Martin for kind of bringing us together for this awesome opportunity. I hope everyone had a great time. Quick reminders for Girl Scouts. This program did fall under our Meet an Expert umbrella, so you can go onto our Girl Scout shop and get your Meet an Expert patch. Additionally, all the girls participating today will get a special Lockheed Martin and Girl Scouts patch in the mail. We're just going to send that to you automatically, so you don't have to do anything for that other than show it off on your vest or sash. If you are interested in STEM in general, I highly recommend looking at the Girl Scout STEM badges and journeys. So the Think Like a Citizen Scientist, Think Like an Engineer, participating today also met some requirements for the STEM career exploration badges. So there's a lot like within the world of Girl Scouts that you can check out. And yeah, if you have any questions, please feel free to shoot me an email. All you should have my contact information in your reminder email. So thanks so much, everybody. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.